Hello, everybody. This is Oscar Muendel, production manager here at WVCW Radio. And today, for WVCWFest, I'm talking with Mimi Luse, a.k.a. Permanent, after her fantastic Nails on a Chalkboard set here. And I guess to get started, I always ask this with our Nails on a Chalkboard artists because, as is the nature with experimental electronic music, it's very hard to put a label on it. How would you describe your sound?
Oh, no. I guess... I've been described as techno or industrial techno or sort of also sometimes like rhythmic noise.
Rhythmic noise. Okay. We were talking about industrial before your set. How like industrial techno? They all feel very like. I'd never know like a very specific definition. You were saying industrial comes from like the 80s a little bit. How like what is your knowledge and background on the term industrial in context of music?
Definitely. I think the way that I think of industrial music specifically is like its historical emergence in Europe in the 80s, coming from artists who were starting to use very early samplers and sampling literally the sounds of industry and of machines in factories that they were working in.
Who were those artists? Do you have like a name?
So I mean, like a really like Throbbing Gristle is a good example of. And they didn't necessarily work in factories, but they were taking noises from the outside world and like bringing them into music. Front 242. SPK, Prima Linea. So that, I guess, informs my work.
Okay. And what about your name, Permanent?
Permanent.
What is Permanent?
I just thought it was really harsh and like scary as a name, and I couldn't pick a name. Like I don't know if you've had issues if you've had a project, like course. Trying to pick a band name is just the worst thing ever. And so I just decided to pick Permanent and told myself I wouldn't change it ever.
It's Permanent. Okay. And so like this industrial sampling and sampling industrial sounds in the world around you, how does that go into your process? Like how do you source your samples?
Sure. So like for this set in particular, it's different for every set.
Could you make sorry?
Oh my gosh. For this set in particular, this was sort of like this whole set that I played tonight was it was kind of like a feminist set. It had samples from Lisa Left Eye Lopez. And there's a documentary called The Last Days of Lisa Left Eye Lopez, and she was a founding member of TLC, wrote the song Waterfalls, but also very famously had BPD and burned her ex-boyfriend's house down. So she's kind of this like figure of female hysteria and violence in some ways, but she was also like an incredibly kind and like interesting creative person. So I'm sampling bits of her testimony before she passed away. She passed away in a car crash, tragically, that's actually filmed as part of the documentary, which is insane. Whoa. Because her friend was filming her while her car spun out. So she's really this like tragic, almost martyr. And she's just really, she's inspired me so much because of her. Yeah, just I think it's like it's rare that you see unhinged behavior. I think like you see a lot of like bad boys, you know, in the history of the avant-garde, misbehaving. But I think, so it's about her. It also features samples of me screaming at the top of my lungs in my car on I-95 as I was driving from Durham to Richmond, where I moved. I made a big move to be in the city And it also coincided with like one of the worst breakups of my life.
Okay.
So like some of those screams that you're hearing are actually like, they sound inhuman, but they're me.
And so you were like in this like almost manic state and you're like, let me use this as material.
Yeah, I was like, okay, here we go. Let's go. There are also some fox screams in there, and they blend in with the sounds of the human scream. So I'm like tapping into some sort of like, you know, animalistic primal feelings there that are, you know, pre-vocal. Right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's fascinating you say that there were like screams and potentially even testimony. I didn't even recognize any of that. They were so heavily processed. Like, what's your process? What is your process for processing your samples?
Sure.
Like is that all of those, is it just like from the layering of those samples that creates the distortion, or like, I guess, yeah, what?
Yeah, a lot of different tools. So I originally with this set, I was trying to only play the set with this machine.
Okay.
So I programmed everything using this machine. So I had to, I told myself I would learn how to use it. It's kind of awkward and from the 90s and really hard to program, but it has some really nice features like a MIDI delay feature that I love. And it has 16 different MIDI. It's a multi-timbral Groovebox, so it has 16 different MIDI tracks. So you can actually make like an orchestra.
Wow.
You can play many different instruments at the same time, which I love about it. But I felt like, you know, the world kept coming in, so I brought in some samples using my, you know, modern Octatrack, which is like, you know, a kind of staple in many techno projects. And so the Octatrack is where I put in, you know, the samples of myself screaming, or the Foxes, or Lisa Left Eye Lopez. And then that has its own, you know, onboard effects that you can manipulate the sound. So I manipulate the LFO on those samples to change the way it's sped up. A lot of delay. Yeah,
totally. So I guess maybe we can get into your gear. Is that cool?
Sure.
How do these two devices communicate?
Sure. So I've just been setting this up as the main sequencer, and when I press play on this Yamaha RM1X, it sends a MIDI signal to the Octatrack, and then plays whatever samples I've programmed in there.
Okay.
But the melody is coming from here. This, I think it's been used by it's been used by a bunch of random artists. It was used I think during the Electroclash movement. So I think some people were using it then.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's the Electroclash movement?
I don't want to get into it.
No?
But
okay.
Because it doesn't really sound at all like that. So
okay.
But yeah, I think I'm trying to think who else used it. Yeah, Grooveboxes are really fun because you have drum beats and leads and pads and bass lines all in one. Really, the idea was to have a really portable setup that I could just bring with me in a little bag and then just play shows on tour. So that was, part of the idea is to have a small setup.
Do you think you could give us a demo on how you trigger samples to this or something? Is that cool?
Sure.
I could just back away.
Is it gonna play if I?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, but I don't hear this guy. Oh, I know why. Okay. So I pressed play on this and it triggered that sample.
So that was from the Octatrack? Okay, cool.
Xerox copy machine. Yeah. And that is set up on one of these tracks right here. See, it's called Scanner at Work. And I can manipulate it using this. It's a really cool trick on the Octatrack. There's the scenes function, and you can set specific parameters on one side of this slider. So I think I have it pitched down here, but then move it up, I have it more pitched up.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
And
it's
it
like a macro
interpolates
thing.
between the two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very handy.
Yeah. It's
That's really
nice.
cool.
And so then I'm just moving through this pre-programmed melody that I've tapped in. And then what I like to do is like go into, so here we have that organ sound playing on this track. So I'd have to press this. I wanted to, you know, mess with the resonance or the cutoff or
there's a lot you can do on that thing.
yeah.
What's that Groovebox called? Oh, I guess RM1X.
RM1X.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Thank you for showing me that.
Yeah.
And I know you were, I guess. Cool. I know you were saying that you didn't start doing techno until recently, right?
Yeah.
And this is a pretty old box. Where did you source that? Where did you find it?
Well, my boss. So when I moved to Richmond, I had a boss, and then the month before I arrived here, he left. So I arrived to my new job without a boss, but he was very nice and gave me this for some reason.
Oh my God.
He was in like a band in the early 2000s called Mirror Mirror, and they use this to program a lot of their tracks. And I think some of them are still on this. It uses a hard disk,
cool.
like a little disc, yeah. So it's actually kind of scary because I could just lose everything really easily. Like there's no way of really backing stuff up after.
Okay.
I don't know, but.
Well, okay, yeah, thank you. Let's see. I wonder if you could tell me more about this. I saw you were on this compilation called Women Created Noise, right?
Oh, yeah.
Could you tell me more about that? Well, I'm not very familiar with what it is.
Yeah, so that is a project by this guy, Steve, who lives in England, and he has a label called Industrial Coast, and it's also like a distro project. So he puts things out on his label, but he also shipping music to England is like insanely expensive. So he works with a lot of smaller labels in the States and in other countries to distribute records and tapes that are like not on major labels, and make it cheaper for people in the UK to buy them. I think that was the original project. He is based like outside of London, and I think his whole thing is that he's trying to like decenter music from the metropolis.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's been doing a lot of projects in smaller towns all around the countryside, and which has been really interesting in bringing artists from all over the world. And I was able to go and meet him, and when I went on tour a couple summers ago, and he drove me around to Leeds and Newcastle, and actually not Leeds. He drove me to Newcastle, Middlesbrough, and another small town. And I played 3 shows in England. Wow. It was really fun. Yeah. But that compilation he's just constantly making compilations, and he comes up with an idea and he'll just do it and execute it. And he's kind of like, fast and loose, like, hey, you want to be on this thing? And yeah, so.
Cool.
Yep.
And I guess one of my last questions, you were talking about you were previously in a band.
Yeah.
And how collaboration is so different than what you do now. Why have you chosen this path as
totally,
as opposed to being in sort of like a collaborative environment?
Yeah. So this, I started working with sequencers as I was finishing the recording on I had a band called Kashun, and we were putting out a record, and we were recording it. And it was also like, the day we were supposed to record it was the day that it was like March 11th, 2020, like right before everything shut down on COVID. And our drummer actually had COVID and we couldn't record that day. And so we had to record everything like piecemeal out of my house, but like over time. And it was just a really painstaking process. And in the meantime, my friend was moving to Chicago and selling all his gear. And I made some trades for like some, mushrooms I was growing. And he gave me some gear and some speakers, and he showed me, my friend Yari showed me how to like sequence stuff. And because I told him, I was like, can you teach me how to make a DAF song? That was like my big thing. I was like, I wanted to make a DAF song. So I was really into DAF, and he taught me that. And then I just started a whole new project. And it's like really fun working on your own. You can work a lot faster. Totally. Working in a band is beautiful, and it can be really magical, but there's a lot that goes into it. And if you're not totally like, if different band members have different ideas of like what they want the band to be, it can be very frustrating and slow. So I really enjoyed just it's magical to be able to work on your own. And
I totally get it.
Play all the instruments.
Well, okay. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you so much.
I guess, does anyone in the audience have a question? Okay. Well, do you have anything you would like to promote? Any shows? Any upcoming releases? I don't know. Before we.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna be playing a show on May 9th with Cindy Lee. It's gonna be so fun, and I'm gonna be singing the whole set. It's gonna be all like covers. Like I'm doing a B-52s cover. I'm doing a Controlled Bleeding cover. I'm actually really scared. So
good luck.
I haven't just like sung in a long time like that. So
okay. Well, cool. I guess look out for that. Look out for any new permanent releases, any new permanent shows. I guess you can follow you on Instagram, and thank you for watching WVCWFest. Okay,
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.